It's one of those nights again. You're lying in the dark still but not settled. Your thoughts keep circling soft but stubborn. They're not loud. Just there. Persistent. Memories. Worries. Longings that don't quite have names. Maybe you're feeling tender. Maybe you're just tired. Not just physically tired in the deeper sense. The kind that doesn't ask for sleep, just stillness. If that's where you are tonight, I see you. You're safe here. You don't need to change or achieve anything. You're already enough. So let's go back. Not too far. Just a few lifetimes. Back to a world of lace corsets, whispering fans, and polite self-destruction. Let's visit the Victorian era and explore the soft, strange world of beauty, where women powdered their skin with lead, tightened their waists to the size of a child's, and dabbed belladonna in their eyes to seem more fragile, more romantic, even as it slowly blurred their vision. You open your eyes. The room is dim, lit only by a single candle on a lace-draped table. The air smells faintly of violet water and old wallpaper. A vanity stands near the bed, cluttered with little glass bottles, silver hairbrushes, and creams in porcelain jars. Someone sits at the mirror. She's quiet, young maybe, or maybe just well-practiced. Her skin is pale unnaturally so. She pats powder along her cheeks, careful not to smile. Smiling causes lines. Her corset is already laced. Her ribs barely move as she breathes. She's learned to speak without expanding her chest, to move without creasing her gown, to eat just enough to appear delicate, but not enough to want more. She opens a bottle, a tincture of belladonna, one drop in each eye. They'll widen now, unnaturally large, glassy, dark. It will sting, and she may see halos around lights for hours. But it's worth it. Because in this world, wide eyes mean innocence, obedience, beauty. Another jar, beeswax and carmine. She dabs it on her lips and pinches her cheeks. No blush allowed to look artificial. It must look like a faint fever, a suggestion of fragility. Because beauty here is not about health. It's about looking near health, looking just a little undone. Not sick, not quite, but breakable. Like a porcelain doll that might crack if you speak too loudly. You sit beside her quietly unseen. You notice the dark stains on the edge of her gloves. Mercury, maybe. From whitening creams. Her hairline is high-plucked carefully because a large forehead is fashionable now. So is a pale neck. So is being faint, slow, restrained. And underneath all of it, discomfort worn like perfume. If this quiet story is helping your thoughts soften, if your breath is slower now than it was 5 minutes ago, you're welcome to like or subscribe, only if it adds calm to your night. No pressure here, just rest. So, where are you now? Lying in bed, curled under the same blanket you always reach for. Half asleep phone resting against your shoulder, still wide awake, but glad to be listening. However you've arrived, I'm glad you're here. You don't need to change your shape, or paint your skin, or soften your edges to be accepted. You can just be. Let your breath expand in your chest. Let your belly rise. No corset here, just comfort. Tonight we'll linger in this odd, beautiful, and slightly haunted world where femininity was an art and pain was part of the palette. Let's begin. Hey guys, tonight we're gliding back into a time when beauty meant sickness, makeup meant poison, and just being conscious all day was considered a bit excessive. Welcome to the Victorian era, where the more fragile, pale, and half alive you looked, the more beautiful you supposedly were. You stroll through foggy London streets in a tightly laced dress parasol, in hand, your corset whispering unkind things to your ribs. A light drizzle falls from the sky gray as the coal smoke curling from every chimney, and even though your stockings are soaked and your curls are frizzing, you must under no circumstances look healthy. To be healthy is vulgar. To be glowing, positively improper. So you aim for something else entirely, what the Victorians called delicate. What that really meant, pale weak and slightly haunted. Like you've been recovering from a long illness, but still haven't eaten anything besides a spoonful of broth in 3 days. Ideal. People called it consumptive chic. Yes, as in tuberculosis. You don't just happen to look sick. You try to. You skip meals. You avoid the sun. You dab a bit of violet shadow beneath your eyes to create that hollowed-out look, subtle enough to suggest you're slowly fading but not so far gone that you can't host a tea party. There's a strange magic in looking like you've just barely survived something tragic. It gives you depth, mystery, marriage potential. Now here's the uncomfortable part. Tuberculosis was deadly and common. It killed young women, especially. Their final days often involved flushed cheeks, bright eyes, and weight loss. Artists, mostly men, romanticized that as the height of feminine allure. Yes, people basically turned a terminal illness into a beauty trend. Historians still argue whether this was aestheticization or a subconscious reflection of how little control women had, turning fragility into power because it was all they were allowed. Some say it was internalized sexism. Others argue it was survival strategy. You just know it's exhausting. So, you go to the apothecary. You ask for complexion powder. The clerk gives you a knowing nod and slides over a tiny tin. You take it home and open the lid to reveal something chalky, ghostly, and suspiciously greenish white. Ingredients, not labeled, but you've heard whispers. White lead crushed pearls, and if you're lucky, a hint of arsenic. You dab it on. Your face becomes matte and moon-like, like a porcelain doll. You have to stay inside all afternoon to keep the illusion intact. One sweat drop could ruin everything. But when your cousin comes by, he compliments how ethereal you look. You smile faintly. Mission accomplished. At dinner, you eat little. A slice of cucumber, maybe a bit of broth. You say you're not hungry, you're never hungry, because eating, like sweating, like speaking too much, or walking briskly, is unbecoming. Even your breath must be delicate. No deep sighs, no laughter loud enough to ruffle a curtain, just quiet, polite decay. Now here's the real twist. The men of this era, the ones setting these beauty standards, were all out and about, drinking port, riding horses, sweating freely, and building empires. Meanwhile, you're expected to look like you've spent the last year bedridden with a mysterious but aesthetic illness. Even the literature agrees. In novels, the most desirable women are usually the most fragile. Think of poor Jane Eyre. She gets the guy after nearly dying. Or Beth from Little Women. Her sweetness is immortalized because of her fatal decline. You're beginning to notice a theme, aren't you? If a woman has power, she loses the man. If a woman is wilting, she wins his heart. You lean into it because there's no other script, but not everyone buys in. Your friend, Marianne, scandalous creature, goes walking in the park without a parasol. She even tans. People whisper. She laughs. One day she comes to tea with flushed cheeks and says, "I ran." You nearly drop your teacup. Why, I wanted to. You shake your head in disbelief. You'll look. Well. She shrugs. So what? You stare at her healthy, glowing, and utterly terrifying. But a little seed has been planted. That night you take a walk too. Just a short one. You keep your hat on and stick to the shaded side of the street. Still your heart pounds, not just from exertion, but from the thrill of rebellion. The next morning, your maid notices your skin has a slight glow. "Have you been out?" she asks, disapproving. You lie. No, of course not. But inside, something shifts. Maybe beauty isn't always about disappearing. Maybe being alive is beautiful. Still, you powder your face. You skip breakfast. You rehearse your delicate smile in the mirror. Old habits hold tight. But your feet remember that walk. Your lungs remember the breath. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a whisper says, you don't have to be sick to be seen. You're not ready yet. But you're close. And in Victorian society, even being close to rebellion is dangerous enough to count as bravery. You open your drawer and pull out a tiny jar. Its glass murky, its label faded. Inside is a cream your aunt gave you, one she swears by the one that made her skin glow like marble. She didn't mention the key ingredient, but you've heard the rumors. Everyone has. Arsenic, a little each day, just a dab across the cheeks, a swirl on the forehead, perhaps a trace along the neck. It clears the skin, they say, makes blemishes vanish, leaves behind a ghostly radiance that no ordinary blush could ever fake. The glow of death, but tastefully done. You apply it. Your skin tingles. You try not to think about what it's doing beneath the surface. Later that week, you go to a beauty demonstration at a department store. A man in a tailored suit explains the benefits of a new complexion tonic. He smiles as he opens a bottle with a puff of sickly sweet vapor and assures you it's safe tested on women like you, he says. You wonder what happened to those women. Probably beautiful, probably buried. The truth is, arsenic wasn't rare in Victorian beauty routines. It was sold in wafers, creams, and soaps. Entire businesses were built on it. Women took it internally to refine the blood, meaning to pale the face. Some formulas combined it with chalk and ammonia, as if one poison wasn't quite enough. And the worst part, it worked, for a little while. Your eyes become brighter, your skin smoother, and everyone compliments you. You look so well, they say, admiring your delicate pallor. You smile politely and try not to wince as your gums ache. Historians still argue whether Victorian women fully understood the risks of arsenic use. Some say they were duped by snake oil salesmen and male-dominated medical boards. Others believe women knew and simply accepted the risk, weighing beauty against survival and deciding beauty was worth it. You don't know where you stand. All you know is that you feel a little worse each morning. Not dramatically, just a slight dizziness, a flutter in your stomach, a strange metallic taste when you drink tea, but you ignore it because your skin is flawless. A few weeks later, your friend Louisa shows up looking strange. Her eyes are bloodshot, her teeth slightly gray. She says she's been using a new brightening water. You nod, but inside you know the same thing is happening to her. You say nothing, because if you say it, she might stop, and then she'll be plain again. So you both continue silently poisoning yourselves for compliments that never last more than a second. It's hard to stop, even when you notice the little patch of hair thinning at your temple, even when your fingernails go brittle, even when your corset feels looser than it should. You start to dream of skin that glows not from chemicals, but from sunshine. You remember again that walk with Marianne. Maybe it wasn't just the air that made her beautiful. Maybe it was the freedom. But still the cream sits on your vanity, a reminder, a temptation, a threat. Your mother visits one evening. She studies your face carefully. You've been using something, she says. You hesitate. Just powder. She gives a small, knowing nod. I used to use arsenic soap, she admits, back when your father was courting me. Everyone did. We all thought we had to. Did you stop? She laughs softly. When my eyelashes fell out, that was my limit. You stare at her, her unpainted skin, her soft wrinkles, her calm. You look peaceful, you say. I am, she replies. I'm alive. You don't throw the jar away. Not yet. But you move it to the back of the drawer. That night you walk outside again. Not far. Just enough to feel a breeze on your face and let your skin breathe. The stars blink overhead like reminders. Beauty is not worth dying for. But still the voices echo. Advertisements, whispers, social rules. Pale is pure, pale is perfect. Pale is powerful. You shake them off, one breath at a time. The waist, that treacherous tyrannical strip of your body, has become your daily battlefield. Every morning begins with the corset. You wake before the servants stir, before the city creaks to life, because it takes time to shrink yourself properly. You wrap it around your middle. It's stiff, structured boned with actual whalebone, or sometimes steel if you're particularly fashion forward. The laces dangle like the strings of a puppet, and indeed, that's how you feel, strung up, bound, and halfway carved into something society might call beautiful. You inhale, barely. Your maid tugs the cords, one hand braced on your back for leverage. You wince. Tighter, you whisper, like a promise to some unseen ideal. She nods, pulls harder, and the pressure creeps inward like an invisible hand around your lungs. By the end, your waist has gone from 24 inches to 18. You've won, and you've lost. You sit down carefully, knees together, back perfectly upright, because there's no other option. Slouching is physically impossible, and therefore in Victorian logic, morally correct. Corsets were not just garments. They were ideology sewn into silk. A well-shaped woman was considered orderly feminine and, most importantly, marriageable. Doctors of the time insisted a narrow waist was a sign of discipline and virtue. Mothers measured their daughters' midsections like tailors, prepping a dress form. The more pain, the more prestige. Still your ribs ache. Sometimes you feel a strange click when you breathe. That's fine, you tell yourself. Bones bend. That's what they're for. Historians still debate the long-term health effects of tight lacing. Some argue women suffered cracked ribs, organ displacement, and even miscarriages. Others insist most corsets weren't worn that tight, that horror stories were rare, and that modern media exaggerates the danger. The truth likely lies between those two whalebones. You try not to think about it. At afternoon tea, you faint. Again. You're carried to a settee, gently reclined, fanned with a lace fan that only seems to blow your shame back in your face. Your corset stays on. No one questions it. Fainting is a performance of delicacy, and you've delivered your scene convincingly. Still, you're starting to wonder, when did breathing become optional? Later, you sit by the fire with a book you don't really read. Your ribs are sore. You unlace the corset, halfway, just enough to feel the shape of your body return. Your stomach expands softly. You exhale deeper than you have all week. You look at yourself in the mirror and realize something chilling. You've forgotten what your natural shape is. You run your hand along your waist, unsure whether what you feel is yours or something you were molded into. Your cousin Emily, recently married, visits with tales from her new household. She says her husband insists she wears her corset, even while sleeping. He says, "It'll keep me elegant into old age." She laughs nervously. You stare at her blankly. What kind of man wants to marry a statue? That night you read an article in a ladies' magazine. It celebrates the ideal waist, a glorious 16 inches, and includes sketches of famous socialites with tape measures wrapped proudly around their middles. You feel the urge to burn the page. Instead, you tear it out and fold it into a paper fan. You wave it absent-mindedly as you unlace yourself completely, standing in your slip, raw-boned and softly breathing. Your waist expands to its true size. It feels strange, like stepping outside after weeks indoors. Is it possible to be beautiful without restriction, to be seen and still be soft? Maybe. You don't discard your corset, not yet, but you put it on a little looser the next day, just enough to sit without gasping, just enough to be human. And somehow that feels like a revolution. Hair, what a strange battlefield it has become. For men, it's a matter of grooming. For you, it's a code, a contract, a full-time job. Because in Victorian society, the right hair says everything: status, virtue, cleanliness, and even moral worth. So every morning, before you've even sipped tea or considered the weather, you sit before a mirror and begin the ritual. Your maid stands behind you, holding a boar-bristle brush that looks more like an antique weapon than a beauty tool. She begins to pull 100 strokes every single day, not for detangling, not for comfort, for shine. The more you brush, the more the natural oils in your scalp distribute through your hair. This, apparently, is science, or at least 19th century science, the kind that sounds suspicious and smells like lavender water and lye. You wince as she hits a snag. Again. You want to scream, but you don't. That would be unfeminine. And besides, screaming requires lung space, and you haven't had that since the corset went on. Now comes the inspection. Split ends, punishable. Frizz, humiliating. Dandruff, social death. You reach for your jar of hair pomade. It's thick like wax, left in the sun. Inside, there's a mixture of bare fat castor oil and whatever herbs the apothecary had in surplus that week. It smells like something between rosemary and disappointment. But the worst is yet to come. You've noticed a few hairs on your chin, just a couple. But in the eyes of Victorian society, that's a catastrophe. Women must be smooth, ethereal, not even slightly mammalian. So you reach for the pumice stone. Yes, pumice. You rub the porous rock along your jawline in slow circular motions. It hurts, but it works kind of. The skin turns red, then raw. But the hair is gone, and that's what matters. You'll cover the redness with powder anyway. Some women pluck. Others use a homemade sugaring paste made from lemon juice and sugar boiled into a sticky syrup. It's poured on, cooled, then ripped off. You've tried it. Once. You still haven't forgiven yourself. And yet for all this pain, hair was also sacred. You save the strands from your brush and store them in a porcelain jar. Everyone does it. Hair is sentimental, a symbol of self. It's woven into brooches, sewn into lockets, even made into mourning wreaths. Your friend Helen wears a bracelet made entirely from her dead sister's braids. It's beautiful and terrifying. Historians still argue why Victorians were so obsessed with hair. Some say it was tied to memory and grief, tangible proof of love. Others argue it was simply fashion turned fetish. You're not sure. You just know that hair is always either too much or not enough. Let's not even talk about underarm hair. You're expected to be as smooth as a marble statue, but razors, rare. Most women use tweezers, thread, or chemical paste so caustic they'd make modern wax strips seem luxurious. And the irony, you're still supposed to pretend it's effortless. No one talks about the rituals, about the burning, about the scabs. You simply show up looking pristine, and if anyone asks how you smile and say, "Oh, I just splash my face with rose water," it's a lie, but it's the required one. Your friend Marianne, the rebel again, says she lets her hair grow naturally, even under her arms. You choke on your tea. That's bold. She shrugs. It's mine. You stare at her, radiant, unburnt, defiant. And you wonder, could you? That night you skip the pumice. You let the tiny hairs stay. No one notices, but you do. And for a moment that feels enough like freedom to count. You walk through the perfumery, gloved hands, grazing glass bottles that glitter under gaslight. The air smells like a garden that's just lost its mind. Roses, violets, ambergris, cinnamon, lemon, lavender, and something else. Something thick and musky that you can't quite place. The saleswoman, corseted even tighter than you, smiles and asks if you're looking for a daytime scent or something more intimate. You blink. Is that allowed to be said out loud? She shows you a vial. This one has a touch of civet. You pause. You know what civet is. It's not a flower. It's not a fruit. It's an oily secretion from the glands of a wild cat that looks like a raccoon and smells like a nightmare when fresh, but once diluted magic, or so they say. You uncap the bottle and inhale cautiously. It smells rich, old, like velvet curtains in a room where no one opens the windows. You nod politely. Perfume in the Victorian world is not just about smelling pleasant. It's about status, cleanliness, and most importantly, containment. Your scent must not offend. It must not announce desire. It must be subtle like a secret, or at least a very well-behaved whisper. Victorian hygiene wasn't exactly modern. Baths were infrequent deodorants, not yet common. So, perfume had work to do. You'd apply it behind the ears, at the wrists, maybe even mist it on your undergarments. It masked the human. It offered a socially acceptable illusion of immortality. But some scents were aggressive. Take the popular Millefleur blend. It combined over a dozen floral oils, then fixed the scent with tincture of ambergris. Yes, that ambergris, the whale vomit prized for its sweet, lingering aroma. You've worn it. You've smelled like royalty and regurgitation. But everyone praised it so. You smiled and played along. There were stranger rituals still. Some women placed cotton balls soaked in perfume between their corset layers. Others dabbed perfume on handkerchiefs and sniffed them in public, claiming it helped ward off disease, especially during outbreaks of cholera. It didn't, but it did make a woman seem fashionable and cautious, which was almost as good as being medically correct. Historians still argue about the role of perfume in Victorian health beliefs. Some say people genuinely thought scent could prevent illness, miasma theory, and all that. Others think it was just another excuse to indulge in luxury while pretending it was medicine. Either way, you carry a perfumed handkerchief in your pocket, just in case. The oddest trend, scented gloves, soaked in violet oil or musk, then sealed in boxes for days so the leather would absorb the fragrance. When you wear them, every gesture leaves behind a trail. You could ruin a man just by handing him a letter. That's power. But not all perfume was created equal. The poor used cheap colognes that smelled of alcohol and pine tar. Middle-class girls dabbed floral waters from pressed petals. The rich, they ordered custom blends from Paris, containing ingredients that came from 5 continents and cost more than your maid's yearly wages. You once met a duchess whose perfume contained tincture of crushed pearls. To remind me of the sea, she said. You nodded. You didn't ask why she couldn't just visit the sea. You keep your own collection small, a rose water, a faint sandalwood, and one small bottle tucked deep in a drawer of patchouli. It smells earthy warm, just a little improper. You wear it only when you walk alone. Today you wear nothing, no scent at all, just your own skin, clean and unpowdered. You step into the sunlight. Someone passes you on the street and wrinkles their nose, perhaps expecting a cloud of lavender and civet. They smell nothing. They say nothing. You smile. And for the first time in days, you feel like you belong to yourself. You sit very still the way you've been taught since girlhood, back straight, ankles crossed, hands delicately folded in your lap like a napkin at a formal dinner. But beneath the table your feet are aching, not from walking, from being squeezed, flattened, reshaped day after day into something that could be mistaken for elegance. Shoes are not just accessories. In Victorian society, they are discipline incarnate. Yours are tiny 2 sizes too small, if you're honest, but the leather is soft and pale blue embroidered with tiny silver stars. They cost a month's allowance and pinch like regret. You remember the first time your governess measured your feet with a ribbon. You were 12. Too wide, she said. We'll start binding with softer laces. You didn't understand then. You understand now. The idea was never pain for its own sake. It was control. In the eyes of Victorian fashion, a lady's foot should be delicate, a whisper of anatomy, never strong, never grounded. The smaller the foot, the less space you take up in the world. That's the point. You should be able to stand beside a man and appear almost not to exist at all. Your friend Clara has bunions so large she can no longer wear boots. She hides her feet in soft velvet slippers and walks with a limp. From dancing, she says. It's a lie everyone accepts, like saying your corset bruise is from horseback riding. Historians still debate whether Victorian foot shaping was comparable to Chinese foot binding. Some argue the Western version wasn't as severe, just tight shoes, not broken bones. Others insist that's a technicality. The intent was the same, to mold the female body into something smaller, weaker, and supposedly more desirable. You once tried walking barefoot in your garden. The grass felt strange, almost intrusive. Your soles weren't used to texture. You stepped on a pebble and nearly cried. Your body, it seems, has forgotten what earth feels like. But the shoes are beautiful. That's what you tell yourself. They match your gown perfectly. The heel clicks lightly on the ballroom floor, each step a performance. You've learned to glide, not walk like a bird in a cage, taught to hop gracefully. At parties, men compliment your shoes. So dainty, they say, so refined. You nod, smile, and shift your weight to relieve the pressure. You've mastered the art of hiding discomfort behind gracious laughter. But at night, when you remove them, your toes are swollen and red, pressed into unnatural curves. Your toenails are bruised. Sometimes your feet cramp in your sleep, curling involuntarily into fists of pain. You massage them in secret. No one must see. Foot care is private, almost shameful. Even your maid pretends not to notice the liniment oil and the callus scraper hidden in your drawer. Some women use foot powder scented with roses. Others bathe their feet in milk. You once read about a duchess who soaked hers in chilled wine every Thursday, claiming it restored spiritual elegance. You tried it once. It just felt sticky. The oddest trend. False heels. Some women attach small lifts inside their shoes to adjust posture or appear taller. You tried those too. They made your calves ache and your balance wobble, but you looked stunning in mirrors, so you wore them again. This isn't vanity. It's expectation. A man can have feet like hooves and still be called noble. You must have feet like porcelain sculptures and pretend you were born that way. But here's a secret. Sometimes late at night you take your shoes off and walk the length of your room barefoot. Just 5 steps forward, 5 steps back. The carpet feels rough and honest. You wiggle your toes. You flex your arch. You exist fully, painfully, rebelliously as yourself. And then, just before dawn, you put the shoes back on. Because beauty, as you've learned, demands both performance and amnesia. But somewhere deep in your blistered heels, a memory lingers of what it was like to stand freely, of what it felt like to walk without permission. The mirror in your dressing room is taller than you are framed in gilded wood, and flanked by 2 small sconces shaped like swans. It reflects everything: your posture, your poise, your polished silence. But it also reflects your skin. And today your skin is not cooperating. There's a blemish on your chin, a tiny eruption of rebellion. And in the world you live in, this is not a minor inconvenience. It's a crisis. Victorian women were expected to glow, not with health, but with pallor. Pale skin was fashionable, romantic, and most importantly, it signaled that you didn't labor outdoors like the common folk. Tans were for peasants. A sun-kissed cheek was social exile. So you avoid the sun like it carries judgment. This means hats, big ones, parasols lined in lace and bone. You've even heard of women painting their windows with blue glass to block out certain rays. You've never gone that far, but you do apply a cream every night, a strange concoction of lead and vinegar designed to brighten the complexion. It stings a little. Okay, a lot. The lead-based lotions are common, sold in ornate jars with names like Madame Lucille's Elixir or Pearl of Venus. You suspect they're poison, but they promise beauty, and poison with good branding is just another cosmetic. Historians still debate how aware women were of the dangers. Some argue you all knew and accepted the risks. Others believe the marketing was too persuasive, the labels too vague. You're not sure. You just know the cream works. Your skin does glow unnaturally smooth like porcelain dipped in frost. But blemishes, those are harder. You dab the spot with a mixture of lemon juice and chalk. You try rosewater crushed strawberries, even a salve made of crushed snails, and honey. That one, frankly, was a mistake. Your maid whispers that another household uses powdered arsenic, just a little under the tongue, she says, for that perfect bloom. You stare at her, horrified, and if you're honest, a little curious. There's a popular belief that a flawless face reflects a flawless soul. Pimples hint at moral failing. A red patch might suggest vanity, gluttony, or suppressed passion. You're pretty sure your chin spot just came from last night's buttery scone, but try explaining that to society. And then there's the powder, thick, pale, perfumed. You apply it in layers, smoothing it down your nose, across your cheeks, and gently over your temples. You don't smile during application. It causes creases. Your eyebrows are next. You've been tweezing them thinner each week, though you're not entirely sure why. Thin brows are in fashion, but your cousin has started shaving hers off entirely and drawing them back with a charcoal pencil. They look surprised, permanently. Rouge is controversial. Some women swear by it, just a touch on the apples of the cheeks, like a shy blush. Others say it's immoral, a signal of loose character. You use beet juice, natural, harmless, socially ambiguous, the perfect compromise. But your lips, that's the trickiest part. Lip coloring is practically forbidden. Still, you crush rose petals between your fingers and press them gently against your mouth. The stain is soft, like a secret. You once read that Queen Victoria banned all makeup except for medical purposes. Paint, she called it, is for actresses and the dead. And yet, her court shimmered with creams and powders hidden in ivory cases and gold compacts. Hypocrisy, it seems, has always worn rouge. You finish your face, You look at yourself and see someone who passes, who blends, who disappears beautifully into the wallpaper of society. But under the surface, your skin itches. The lead cream is working its way into your pores. The chalk is drying. You feel less like a woman and more like a doll left too close to the fire. Still, you leave the house, and everyone says, "You look radiant." You smile carefully and make a mental note to try the arsenic just once. You're at the hairdresser's again. The room smells of lavender, singed wool, and something vaguely metallic. The chairs are narrow, upright, and unforgiving, like everything else in your world. The mirror stretches the entire wall, reflecting rows of women with identical worried eyes and elaborate buns halfway finished. Today it's your turn to be transformed. Your stylist, Madame Fleur, is the only woman you know who's allowed to touch your head without apology. She's French, or at least pretends to be, which gives her license to be blunt and a little terrifying. You've let it fall flat again. She clucks, inspecting your part. No volume, no mystery. You apologize. You don't know why. She begins the process. First, a thick pomade of bear grease and beeswax is worked into your roots, cold and sticky, with the texture of overcooked pudding. Then comes the teasing. She lifts strands of your hair and backcombs them viciously with a boar bristle brush until each section stands out like startled hay. The goal: height, volume, majesty. In Victorian beauty, the head must look important, like it contains secrets, sonnets, or at the very least, an expensive education. Flat hair is a moral failing. Big hair is noble. To achieve this, women use rats, not the animal. Hair rats are balls of your own discarded locks, rolled and shaped and tucked beneath live strands to add fullness. You keep a little box on your vanity labeled Tuesday's Shedding. It's disgusting and essential. The style today is a Marie Stuart. That means braids, coils and loops arranged like a crown with trailing curls over your ears to soften the silhouette. It takes 2 hours. You sit very still. Some women go further. They attach false hair called switches to bulk up the style. You've used them for evening galas, hiding the clips behind pearl combs. One of your friends wears a full wig, dyed to match her eyebrows. She says it's liberating. You wonder if it's itchy. Madame Fleur brandishes her curling iron and iron rod heated in a coal stove. She tests its warmth on paper. If the paper browns but doesn't burn, it's ready. You gulp. This is the dangerous part. The iron comes close to your temple. You smell smoke. You hear the faint sizzle of hair being cooked into submission. You do not flinch. Flinching is for amateurs. Historians still debate whether Victorian women were aware of how often their hair caught fire. Some say it was rare. Others point to diary entries and medical reports of scorched scalps and even fatalities. One account tells of a duchess whose entire coiffure went up in flames during a dinner party. She lived. Her reputation did not. And then there's the issue of lice. You don't like to talk about it, but everyone has the comb. It's made of ivory or horn, and you run it through your hair nightly, praying not to see the tiny white specks clinging to the teeth. Some swear by kerosene rinses. Others swear by prayer. Madame Fleur finishes your style with a spritz of rose water and a dusting of starch. Your hair is now a sculpture, firm, fragrant, and completely immobile. You are perfect, she declares. You stand. Your neck aches. Your scalp feels tight. But yes, your reflection is stunning, regal, mysterious. No one would guess what it took to get there. Later at the opera, a gentleman compliments your hair. A crown of clouds, he calls it. You smile and think about the box of discarded strands still sitting on your vanity, waiting to be sewn into tomorrow. The gloves are soft, made from kid leather, dyed a pale ivory, and scented faintly with violet oil. You pull them on slowly, tugging each finger into place like a ritual. Victorian etiquette says gloves are not just a fashion statement. They're armor. Your skin, particularly your hands, must be shielded from public view. To touch the world directly would be indecent. Your fingertips press against the seams, already warm and slightly sticky inside. They fit so tightly, it feels like your hands are being gently strangled. You flex your knuckles. No give, but you smile. Because too loose gloves suggest carelessness, and carelessness is one step from ruin. Every morning begins with a calculation. Which gloves match your hat, your parasol, your shoes? Are you visiting a friend or attending tea? Are you walking or sitting? There are glove rules for each situation. Elbow length for formal dinners, wrist length for morning calls. No gloves while eating, but always gloves when arriving. Forgetting them is a social sin. Historians still debate whether gloves were more about modesty or class distinction. Some believe they were a tool of moral decorum, keeping hands clean and feminine. Others argue they were simply another way to separate you from those who worked with theirs. Either way, your hands haven't touched anything real in months. You've seen maids with bare hands, red from scrubbing. Their fingers are thick nails, short skin, cracked. You used to have hands like that when you were a child, before your lessons began, before you learned that gentility requires distance, not just from work, but from texture, temperature, sensation. Sometimes you miss it. You once dared to peel an orange without gloves. The juice clung to your fingers, the zest stung a paper cut, and for a fleeting moment you felt alive. Then your aunt saw and scolded you for behaving like a scullery maid. Now you use a fruit fork. The strangest glove trend of all perfumed linings. Women soak the insides with lavender water or rose oil, letting their scent waft into the air as they gesture. It's elegant. until the perfume mixes with sweat and leather. Then it smells like old flowers in a wet drawer. You've tried glove powder. It helps. But by mid-afternoon, your fingers itch. You suspect a mild rash is forming. You ignore it. Better an itch than a reputation for untidy hands. And then there's the matter of glove etiquette with men. If one offers to kiss your hand, you must decide whether to remove your glove or not. Removing it signals trust, bare skin to bare lips, but too eager a removal. Scandal, too slow, coldness. You've practiced the exact timing in front of your mirror. 3 seconds. No more, no less. You remember one evening, standing beneath a gas lamp as a man reached for your gloved hand. The moment stretched your breath, shallow heart, pacing under the lace of your corset. You kept the glove on. He smiled anyway. That was 3 years ago. You still have the gloves. You wear them on rainy days, even though they're slightly stained. They remind you of the restraint you chose, the power of withholding, the beauty of not giving in. Tonight you remove your gloves before bed. Your hands are pale and soft, the skin faintly wrinkled from a day without air. You flex your fingers, trace the lines of your palm, and press your thumb into your own skin just to feel it give. For a few quiet minutes, you lie still, hands open uncovered yours. Then you close your fingers again and drift to sleep like a lady protected, powdered, and perfectly poised. You begin the night like you always do, unraveling the beauty you spent all day carefully maintaining. The room is dim, lit by a flickering gas lamp and the soft tick of a wall clock that sounds louder, now echoing in the silence. The long mirror on the vanity reflects your image, a woman half dismantled. Your corset is off. Your stays lie folded on the chair. But your duty to beauty is not yet finished. You reach for the silver hairbrush. It's heavy in your hand and cool to the touch, its boar bristles worn smooth from years of nightly use. The handle is engraved with your initials, a gift from your mother on your 15th birthday. You didn't understand the weight of it then. Now you do. You sit straight-backed on the cushioned stool, feet flat, ankles touching. A lady's posture must be practiced even in solitude. You begin to brush long, deliberate strokes from root to tip, 50 on the left, 50 on the right. You whisper the numbers under your breath like a prayer. The brushing isn't for detangling. It's for obedience, discipline, proof that you have control over something, even if that something is just your own hair. Each stroke tugs slightly residue from today's beeswax pomade and yesterday's rose oil still clinging to the strands. You wince once, just once. Women have brushed their hair this way for centuries, and yet the Victorians made it sacred. One guidebook called it a ritual of renewal. Another said it was the moment when a woman reclaims herself from society. You wonder if men ever have to reclaim themselves from anything. The air smells faintly of starch and soap, and the soft creak of your vanity chair adds rhythm to your routine. Outside, Horses clatter on cobblestone, and somewhere a neighbor's baby cries, muffled by walls and glass. You imagine a maid tiptoeing to soothe it, her hair unbrushed, her hands coarse. Your hands, in contrast, are pale, clean, lotioned. They haven't done real work in years. Now the hairpins. There are always more of them than you remember putting in. You remove them one by one, dropping them into a porcelain bowl. The clinks are soft but satisfying, each one a small release. As the final pin falls, your hair collapses down your back, a cascade of carefully cultivated curls giving way to natural waves. You part your hair with a bone comb section by section, checking for any signs of weakness. Victorian women believe a woman's health is reflected in her hair. Dullness means disease. Shine means purity, and thinning unspeakable. One of your cousins, Martha, wore a wig to tea last month. She smiled as if nothing were different. But everyone knew. They always know. Once the hair is brushed and braided loosely, you turn to your face. Cold cream first. It's thick, cool, and faintly scented with mint. You smooth it over your cheeks, your forehead, your neck. The texture reminds you of childhood, of your mother's fingers, wiping away tears or soot from play. You pause. Let the cream sit. Let your face soften. Then comes the rosewater rinse. You dab it with a cotton cloth, gently removing the cold cream, revealing skin beneath, pale, clean, still yours. Next, a mixture of lemon juice and egg white. It smells strange, sharp, and faintly sulfuric. But this is how you keep your skin taut. For youth, your aunt says. For radiance. Historians still argue whether these nightly concoctions worked or merely dried women's skin faster. But the rituals persist. You persist. You open a small drawer and pull out the nail box. Inside lemon, a pumice stone, a file made of glass. You work on your cuticles, rubbing in the lemon to bleach them slightly. Your nails are short, round, clean, never painted. Painted nails are for actresses, courtesans, or French women, which to most Victorian matrons are interchangeable. Your elbows, your knees, the tops of your shoulders, each receives a dab of lanolin. You smooth the greasy balm into the skin with methodical care. Dryness is vulgar. Softness is survival. No one sees these parts of you, but they are part of the unspoken armor you wear. You yawn, but you're not finished. Next comes the lash oil. Castor, always. You dip your fingertip and run it gently across your upper lashes. Some say it helps them grow longer. Others just like the sheen. You've never trimmed yours, though many women do. They believe snipping the ends makes them grow thicker, more prominent. The eyes, said one beauty manual, must resemble a sleeping doze. You have no idea what that means, but you've seen what happens to women who fail to achieve it. They fade. Now the jaw ribbon. You swore you'd never use one again after waking up in a panic, feeling strangled. But here you are, lifting the soft pink silk, tying it under your chin. It presses your cheeks upward. Hold your jaw in place. Beauty, your mother once told you, must be enforced even in sleep. Some women wear full facial masks, lace soaked in rose water and glycerin to train the skin. Others wrap their legs to prevent knee spread. There are even women who sleep on inclined boards to stop sagging. Historians still debate whether these rituals were acts of self-care or silent forms of self-harm. You suspect it's both. You lie down carefully, limbs aligned like a statue on display. Your pillowcase is satin, your sheets linen, embroidered by nuns in the countryside. You spent a week's allowance on them. Worth it. Beauty, after all, must rest luxuriously. Beneath your pillow is a sachet of dried lavender, mint, and orris root. You press your face to it. The scent is faint, earthy, safe. A reminder that somewhere beyond corsets and creams, there are fields and rain and dirt. You miss them sometimes. Your eyes grow heavy. The gas lamp flickers lower, and then quiet. You are still. You are soft. You are beautiful. You are alone, but you are never unprepared. The morning sun has not yet touched your curtains, but you're already stirring, because in this era, sleep is a luxury and preparation is perpetual. Before the light can even judge you, you must begin rebuilding what the night unraveled. Your hair, now flattened and kinked from the braid, must be revived. You sit up slowly, bone stiff, not from age, but from restraint. The sleeping ribbon has left an imprint on your jaw, a faint red line declaring your dedication to the cause of beauty. You pull the ribbon off gently and examine your reflection in the vanity mirror. You squint. Are your cheeks slightly higher today? Probably not. But it's the hope that matters. Always the hope. You unwrap the braid and begin brushing again. This time it's not discipline. It's recovery. 50 strokes on each side again. Your wrist aches. You ignore it. Victorian beauty expects repetition, if not for results, then for penance. You remember the advice of a magazine you read last month. The well-groomed woman never surprises herself in the mirror. Meaning, of course, that she must always look the same. Your daily toilette is just beginning. First comes the basin. Cold water, as hot, is believed to agitate the complexion. You shiver, splash it onto your face, and then pat dry with a cloth warmed on the radiator. The juxtaposition is jarring ice, then warmth, a reminder that comfort and discomfort are never far apart in this world. Next, the face powder. You open the tin and tap some into a porcelain dish. The powder is pale, nearly white, and scented faintly with violets. You dip your puff and begin pressing it into your skin, slowly, carefully. You avoid the creases around your mouth. You avoid the eyelids. Just a soft veil of matte, finished to banish any sign of shine. A glow is fine for candles, not for foreheads. You dab a little rouge onto your cheeks, just a whisper of pink. The goal is not to look painted, The goal is to look naturally flushed, as if caught mid-laughter or gently embarrassed. One guide recommends pinching the cheeks before applying the rouge to create a true blush beneath the artifice. You do it now, out of habit, though it hurts. Lips are another story. Most days, you leave them bare. Some women bite theirs to make them look redder. Others rub them with beet juice. But you prefer beeswax, tinted with crushed rose petals. It's soft, subtle, and almost invisible, which is exactly how you're expected to appear: beautiful but deniable. Noticeable only if someone looks too closely. Now, eyebrows. You take the brush and smooth them flat. You pluck only the stray ones that dare rebel. Thick brows are wild, thin ones are vulgar. What you want is a gentle arch, an expression of permanent calm. As you work, you remember a recent newspaper article praising a duchess's serene forehead and angelic brows. No one talks about the duchess's policies or her opinions, just her brows. You sigh. You are not a duchess. But still your brows must perform. And then an absurd but required step, the breath test. You cup your hands. Breathe in. Are you sweet? If not, you chew mint leaves or rinse with myrrh. Some women sleep with cloves in their mouths, but they tend to choke. You tried it once. Never again. You stand and move to the full-length mirror, lifting your chemise to examine your posture. Straight spine, pulled shoulders, chin level. You practice your walk. 3 steps forward, turn 3 steps back. Not because anyone is watching, but because they always might be. You check your underarms. A lady does not sweat. Or rather, she pretends not to. Victorian deodorant is a lie made of talc and floral oils. You apply it now, dabbing with a cotton cloth. You pretend it works, and then you address your arms. The skin must be flawless, so you use a mixture of milk and honey left to soak on your forearms for 10 minutes. While you wait, you read a small booklet titled The Language of Flowers, its margins dotted with tiny notes in your sister's handwriting. You smile. Then you notice a splotch of rough skin on your elbow. You frown. You grind a sugar cube in a mortar and mix it with lemon. You scrub. It stings. But stinging means it's working. Historians still debate whether women of your era truly believed these things or whether they simply played along because there was no other game available. You know the truth. You don't always believe, but you always comply. Now comes the final inspection. You lift the mirror, checking your neck, your décolletage, your ears. Is there any stray hair? Any spot of uneven tone? You take a sponge and dab vinegar on a mole you dislike. You consider covering it with powder, but it might smudge. Your maid knocks. Shall I bring the tea? Miss, you respond, yes, thank you, while hiding the mole with your hair, because the performance never ends, even at breakfast, even alone. And as you step into your gown, corset-tightened boots, buttoned gloves, pulled, you walk, not as a woman waking into her day, but as a statue reassembled for the world's appraisal. And somewhere inside, beneath all that artifice, you remain the same. A girl brushing her hair by candlelight, wondering how much of herself she has yet to surrender. By midday, your appearance has settled into place like armor, a soft shield of powder, pressed linen sculpted posture. You've had 2 cups of tea, spoken to the laundress about the state of the bed linens, and penned 3 polite refusals to social events. Through it all, not once has your expression faltered, not even when the second cousin of a baron commented that your gloves were charmingly outdated. You laughed, lightly, as if nothing could possibly offend, but inside, you made a mental note to have them replaced. Appearance, after all, is never casual. It is curated, controlled. As the afternoon creeps in, so does the sun, casting its glare through the drawing-room window. You pause in front of a small hand mirror, checking once more for shine. Heaven forbid a visitor glimpse a glint of forehead light and presume exertion. You dab your nose with rice powder, safe again. A lady, especially one not yet married, must remain composed at all hours. This means resisting the temptation to scratch a bite or pick at dry skin or, worst of all, adjust her corset in public. Victorian society, in its vast imagination, decided that women's physical imperfections were signs of moral flaws. A chapped lip was laziness. A flushed cheek was scandal. Even a rough elbow hinted at questionable upbringing. It's a lot to carry on skin. Today you're trying a new product. Your friend Clara swears by vinegar-dipped cloths wrapped around the wrists and ankles to draw out toxins. Historians still argue whether these rituals had any medical basis or were just creative punishment wrapped in lavender. Either way, the smell is terrible, and your maid gives you a strange look when you ask her to tie them. But you want your limbs to remain lithe, your joints delicate. The cost is vinegar-scented sleeves. So be it. You turn next to your lashes again, never done always, revisited. In this light they look unremarkable. You reach for the burnt clove and gently rub it along the lash line, a trick you learned from a dancer, whispered at a garden party. It stings a little. That's how you know it's working. Your eyes water slightly, but they sparkle, don't they? You sit on the chaise lounge and sip a lukewarm tea, blend meant to balance the humors. The taste is bitter, but supposedly it prevents blemishes. You've never read a scientific explanation, of course, just testimonials in ladies' journals with names like The Fragrant Lily or Modesty's Mirror. Still, if something makes it into print, it must be true. Right, a knock at the door. A visitor. You stand quickly, adjust your skirt, pat your hair into place. A single curl has escaped. Of course it has. You lick your fingertip and press it back, praying it stays. You remind yourself not to smile too widely. Smiles cause lines. You enter the sitting room with your most practiced look, mildly pleased, gently interested, never desperate. Your guest is Miss Eliza Crawford. Perfect curls, enviable skin, and the faint scent of expensive violets. She compliments your complexion, and you're both aware It's a competition masked as courtesy. You thank her, then ask about her latest regimen. She laughs, then leans in. Have you tried boiled milk compresses for the hands? Change mine completely. You nod. You lie. Yes, they're wonderful. In truth, you haven't tried them yet, but you will tonight. And not just for your hands. You'll try them on your neck, your collarbone, even your back. Because what if she's right? What if it works? After tea, Eliza leaves, and you collapse slightly, not fully, just enough that your spine touches the back of the chair. Your corset protests, and you whisper an apology to your lungs. It's now late afternoon, the hour when mirrors start to lie. The golden light is too forgiving, too soft. You step into the hallway where the gaslight is harsher, more honest. There you examine your face again. Your cheeks are fading. You reapply rouge. Your lips have dried. You reapply beeswax. There's a faint puffiness under one eye. Panic. You remember a trick. Cold spoons pressed under the eye sockets. You fetch them from the kitchen rush upstairs and hold them in place while reading the proper young lady's guide to temperance and tone. You hope both will seep in. These rituals are exhausting. You know that, but they are the currency of your world. No matter how intelligent, kind, or clever you are, you will be judged first by the softness of your hands and the smoothness of your brow. You think of your friend Abigail, brilliant, sharp, unmarried, at 28. They say she let herself go, meaning she stopped trying. You cannot afford that. As the sun slips lower, you begin preparing for the evening routine, yes, again. Because in this era, beauty resets twice a day. You remove your gown, hang it carefully, inspect the underarms for marks. You sprinkle starch powder inside the bodice just in case. You begin loosening the corset, each unlacing both a relief and a reminder. Your ribs ache. So do your shoulders. But pain here is proof. You soak your feet in rose water and vinegar. You massage your calves with almond oil to prevent thick ankles. You even roll a marble under your chin, a new trick meant to discourage fullness. Your mother knocks once, then enters. She looks at you and smiles. You're doing well, she says. Then after a pause, just remember, consistency is everything. You nod. You want to say you're tired, that you wish freckles were fashionable, that it would be nice to go one day without counting your own flaws like sheep before sleep. But instead you smile and begin braiding your hair once more. You sit at your vanity again, third time today. Not because you need to reapply anything, not exactly, but because stillness makes you nervous. In a world where appearance equals value, every quiet moment becomes an opportunity to fix, enhance, improve. The mirror in front of you knows all your secrets, yet it never tells you when you've done enough. Your fingers hover above the row of tiny brushes and jars. There's the eyebrow comb, shaped like a miniature rake, the clove-stained eyeliner wand, the tin of chalk for whitening the earlobes, because yes, even your earlobes must be delicate. You think for a second about doing absolutely nothing, about walking away, about sitting in the garden without gloves and letting your skin tan. But that's not how this works. You reach for the chalk. Victorian society thrives on paradox. You are meant to appear as if you never try, while spending every waking moment trying. Effort is invisible. Flawlessness is assumed. But heaven help the woman who fails to maintain it. You remember what the vicar's wife said last Sunday, softly with a smile while stirring her tea. A woman who neglects her appearance shows disregard for God's design, as if freckles were a moral failing, as if wrinkles meant rebellion. You press the chalk gently beneath your jawline, blending until it matches the rest of your skin. You know the chalk contains lead. Everyone does. But the tins still sell out. Historians still argue whether women of your time were truly unaware of the risks, or whether they simply accepted them. After all, what's a shortened lifespan compared to societal approval? The answer is, most women never got to choose. You set down the chalk and reach for a vial of lavender water, a safer product at least. You dab it behind your ears and at the wrists. Scent, they say, should be barely there. A suggestion, not a statement. The wrong perfume can label you. Too sweet and you're frivolous. Too musky and you're suspicious. The perfect scent says, I exist quietly but beautifully. You stand stretched just slightly and roll your shoulders back. Your corset tugs you back into place. Always reminding. Always shaping. There is a booklet lying on your desk on the virtues of modest demeanor in the young lady. You've read it 4 times. Its margins are underlined. The section on face management is particularly absurd. A lady should smile no more than 5 times per hour when in mixed company. You once tried to follow that rule at a picnic. It nearly broke you. Outside, a breeze rustles the curtains. You glance out the window and catch sight of a servant girl, bare arms, flushed cheeks, a grin that's real. For a moment you envy her. Then you remind yourself that beauty in your world is not freedom. It is currency, and your account must always stay full. You turn back to the mirror and examine your teeth. Not too white, not too crooked. Your smile is one of your better features, but only in profile. Straight on, it's a little wide. You'll remember to tilt your chin slightly at the next dinner party. Your tongue tastes faintly of alum and mint. Earlier, you rubbed the mixture onto your gums, a trick meant to firm the mouth and discourage slack expression. You're not entirely sure what that means, but it sounds like something you should prevent. Now comes a ritual. Most don't talk about the waist tape. It's a soft ribbon, marked in inches, kept hidden in your drawer. You measure yourself daily, not because you intend to gain or lose. Such things are vulgar to discuss, but because awareness is a virtue. Today, you're 1/4 inch smaller than last week. You should feel victorious. Instead, you feel anxious, like the numbers are slipping into your bones, whispering, "Be smaller still." You let the ribbon fall into your lap. And then you remember the rose petal trick. You crush 3 dried petals between your fingers, sprinkle them into your drawer of underthings. Supposedly, it makes them smell sweet enough to charm a future husband if one ever sees them. You doubt it works, but it's the kind of detail people expect you to care about. So you do. There's a letter on your desk from your cousin in the country. She's been tending bees and hasn't worn powder in a year. She says her skin is better for it. She says she smiles at strangers now. You trace the edge of the paper and imagine that kind of life. Sun-warmed, unworried. But then you think of the silence that would greet you if you entered a room with bare lips and a natural flush. Silence is worse than criticism. Silence means you've failed to exist. So, you open your compact and apply another layer. Evening is approaching. The sky is painted in peach and coral, but you're too busy to notice. You're checking your neckline for shadows, your ankles for swelling. You're debating whether to starch your petticoat twice or 3 times for tomorrow's visit to Lady Wexley's salon. This is what beauty means. Now vigilance. Always watching yourself before anyone else can. And though you may sometimes whisper to the mirror, "Is this enough?" the answer is always the same. Not yet. So, you keep going. Brush, dab, press, fold, smile. Because in your world, perfection isn't a feeling, it's a daily assignment. You wake up the next morning to stiffness in your spine and a faint imprint of your hair braid against your cheek. The ribbon slipped in the night again, but you don't panic. Not yet. You sit up slowly, brushing off sleep like an unwanted layer of dust, and reach for the tiny hand mirror by your bedside. It's always there, just in case. The first order of business is triage. Your eyes slightly puffy, your lips parched, a crease across your neck from how your head tilted on the pillow, and, oh dear, a dry patch just beneath your chin. You press your fingers to it and feel the faint grit of dead skin. You mentally cancel the strawberry tart you were planning to eat at tea. That patch will need sugar lemon and 20 minutes of silence. You cross the room to your vanity table and begin the motions with robotic grace. Cold water, pat dry, rose toner with a linen cloth. The cloth smells faintly of starch and regret. It always does. As you begin the brushwork on your hair, you think of the letter your cousin sent again. "I haven't worn a corset in 3 months," she wrote. "I can breathe, finally." You picture her in her cottage, sun catching on her collarbones, laughing with no powder to hide the creases. You're not sure whether you envy her or feel sorry for her. Historians still debate whether women of your status wore beauty as a weapon or a prison. You know it was both. You finish brushing 50 strokes per side and begin the braiding. Loose today, with just a ribbon at the tip. It's more fashionable this year to appear slightly undone, as if beauty just landed upon you by accident, as if you didn't wake up early to construct it. You powder your cheeks with the lightest hand, just a flush of color like the soft bloom of an apple. Rouge, but only high on the cheekbones. If placed too low, you risk appearing common. The line is always thin. Too much and you look theatrical. Too little and you disappear. You open your jewelry box and finger a small tin of brow pomade, something your aunt smuggled from Paris. It smells like beeswax and scandal. You apply it sparingly. Your brows arch like question marks. You sip tea with lemon as you soak your fingers in warm milk. Soft hands make soft impressions. You avoid the sugar cubes today. Sugar puffs the face, they say. Even the sweetness of life must be moderated. There's a spot on your arm that bothers you. A small, flat mole shaped like a comma. You've tried powders and even a dot of lead paste, but it always returns. Last week your sister suggested lemon juice and sun, but you're too afraid to tan. You dab it with vinegar instead. You sit upright. Posture check. Chin tilted, chest lifted. You imagine your silhouette from the side. Is your neck long enough? Are your shoulders too square? You once read that women with square shoulders had a tendency toward male disposition. You don't even know what that means, but you've been curling your shoulders inward ever since. And now you reach the most tiresome step, eyelid inspection. Your left eye always droops more than the right. Barely, but you know. So you pinch the lid and hold it for 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3. The pain is minor, but the annoyance is deep. They say Queen Victoria had perfectly symmetrical eyes. But then again, they also said she didn't age. Lies are fashionable too. You line your eyes with soot from a candle wick, applied carefully with the tip of a bone-handled stick. You blink. It stings. You wipe a tear, then reapply. Your fingers smell faintly of lavender iron and wax. You inhale them. It's the scent of preparation. Someone knocks at the door. Your maid bringing today's list a luncheon at Mrs. Bartlett's. Then a walk in the park, gloves required, and perhaps an invitation to a musical recital this evening. That means retouch powder at noon. Avoid sun. Bring blotting cloths. Refrain from laughing too loudly at Mrs. Bartlett's jokes. Keep your lips together in group photographs so they don't appear disorganized. You nod without speaking and begin sorting through hair ribbons. For day, something soft ivory or dusty rose. Nothing too rich. Velvet is for night. And under it all the corset, lying across the chair like a question you already know the answer to. You lift it. It's heavier than it looks. Boned, tight, firm. You exhale, step in, and begin pulling the laces. Each tug narrows your waist, pushes your ribs inward, lifts your chest. The back of your neck prickles with heat. You feel the familiar flutter of heartbeat in your temples, but you keep pulling, because a 22-inch waist isn't a measurement. It's a reputation. When you're done, you sit down for a moment and press your palms flat on the vanity. You whisper a little mantra, not a prayer exactly, more like a reminder. This is how they see you, so this is who you are. The thought is neither comforting nor tragic. It just is. Outside, the morning continues. Birds sing. Horses clatter along cobbled streets. Somewhere a child shrieks with joy. But inside, your world is quiet. Careful. controlled. You put on your gloves, pick up your parasol, and exit the room. Your feet move forward with grace, your posture unbending. You are a sculpture with a pulse, a painting that breathes. And as you step into the sunlight, you remind yourself today is not about feeling beautiful. It's about being seen that way. The carriage ride to Mrs. Bartlett's is short, but jostling, and every bump threatens to undo something. You hold your parasol like a shield, not from the sun. It's cloudy today, but from the wind that dares to lift a curl. The driver apologizes twice for the uneven road. You smile politely and say it's nothing, but inside, you're calculating the damage. Hairline slight shift, corset still tight, gloves wrinkled at the knuckle. You tug them straight. You glance at your reflection in the window's dull glass. Not flattering, but honest. Your lips look pale. You pull a small container from your reticule and reapply a touch of rouge, not to your mouth, but just above the Cupid's bow, an old trick to make the lips look fuller without appearing painted. Heaven forbid anyone think you've actually used lipstick. You arrive and are announced. Miss, the footman says, just miss. No compliments, no admiration. That's fine. You didn't dress for him. Inside the parlor is a familiar perfume cloud of powder, lemon biscuits, and ambition. The women seated around the low table are dressed in soft lilacs, dusty greens, muted blues. No one risks red during the day. Red means bold. Red is for opera or scandal. You've worn dove gray, a neutral that says, I belong here, but I could disappear if you prefer. They greet you with the same smiles you've practiced in your mirror. Tilted, polite, half sincere. Mrs. Bartlett begins the conversation with a discussion of hair tonics, lemon juice, and crushed pearl. She says, lifting her teacup with trembling fingers, absolutely miraculous, makes each strand shine like morning dew. You nod. You've heard of pearl powder dangerous in large amounts, but everything beautiful carries a risk. You've read of women swallowing arsenic wafers for clear skin. Pale and pure, they called it. Historians still argue whether the dangers were known or deliberately ignored. Either way, the beauty survived them. The women often didn't. You sip your tea, careful not to stain your teeth. You've been rinsing with charcoal water to maintain your smile gritty, unpleasant, but effective. You remind yourself to do it again tonight before anyone notices the subtle tint of yellow from yesterday's lemon tart. The topic shifts to neckline square versus sweetheart. Someone brings up Lady Trelling's daring new gown. It showed the clavicle one, whispers scandalized. Another shakes her head. Next, she'll be painting her cheeks like an actress. They laugh. You laugh too, though not too loudly. Actresses, of course, are the villains of the polite world. Beautiful, but vulgar. Everyone copies them in secret. A younger girl, barely 16, asks if anyone has tried vinegar-soaked cloths for the ankles. Her voice is so earnest, so hopeful, that you ache a little for her. She still believes there's a formula, that if she just follows every step, she'll be seen, chosen, loved. You want to tell her the truth, that it's not about what works, but what it looks like you're doing, that the rituals are just a dance you do until your feet bleed. But instead, you smile and say, it works best if you sleep with your feet elevated, because that's what we do, isn't it? Pass down the performance. After tea, you excuse yourself to the powder room. You need to breathe, but also you need to check. There's always something to fix. The mirror is kind. The lighting is not. You see the faint shadow beneath your jaw again. The mole. It always comes back. You press powder over it. Again. You adjust your posture and take 3 slow breaths. Chest lifted, neck long, eyelids soft, emotions dimmed. Then you walk back in. As you return, the women are discussing corset lengths. Longer ones press the stomach more. Someone says, but help posture. Another says, I read that Queen Victoria's waist was only 18 inches. You've heard it was 16 or 20. The numbers always shrink in memory. You wonder briefly if anyone will ever remember your measurements, if your legacy will be inches, not words. They talk about foot creams, elbow salves, a new method of dabbing lemon on the knees to lighten the tone. One woman suggests bee stings to plump the lips. You think she's joking. You hope she is. Later, after the conversation dulls, you stare out the parlor window. A small boy runs by with a kite, mud on his knees. No care in the world. You press your gloved hand to the glass and wonder just briefly what it would be like to wake up and not think about your face. No powder, no paste, no calculations, just breath. But then Mrs. Bartlett calls your name and you turn. Your smile is ready, your back straightens, and you walk to her side like you've practiced 100 times before. Because this is the world you live in, and beauty here never rests. The carriage rocks gently on the ride home, and for a few moments you let your eyes drift shut. The city hums beyond the glass wheels, against cobblestones the occasional neigh of a horse. Children laughing in alleyways, the metallic rhythm of afternoon life. But in here, wrapped in silk and starch, you feel like an artifact on display. Your parasol rests beside you, the tip stained faintly from brushing against something damp at the garden steps. You'll need to clean it tonight. Everything must be kept pristine. Beauty isn't just about the body, it's about the tools, the tokens, the signs that say I care enough to suffer. The hem of your skirt catches on your shoe. You bend ever so slightly to fix it, then pause. A sharp pain pulls at your side, a corset pinch. You wince. Nothing visible, but deep under the layers, something's bruising. You make a note to loosen the back laces by a 1/4 inch tonight, just for sleep. You arrive home, and your maid is already at the door. She's learned not to ask how the visit went. Those kinds of questions linger like perfume and tend to sour the air. Instead, she takes your gloves, your parasol, your outer shawl. You nod polite and retreat upstairs. In your room, everything waits the way you left it. your slippers by the fire, your face towels folded in threes, your drawer of tinctures slightly ajar. You sit before the mirror again, like a soldier returning to their post. There's powder to remove, a faint curl to retwist, rouge to dab off. The process of unbeautifying takes as long as the reverse. You use almond oil for the rouge, rose water for the powder, and a cloth steeped in milk for your neck. All cool, all soothing, small mercies in a world of discipline. You remove your corset slowly, like peeling off your armor. You breathe deeper now, but not easier. Beneath the cotton chemise, your skin is red and marked. Faint stripes where the boning pressed too hard. A rib protrudes more than it should. You trace it with a finger and sigh. Historians still argue whether corsets deformed women or if the women adapted around them. You think it's both. Bodies bend to survive, especially when no one asks if they should. You stretch your back and lie down for a moment. The mattress is too firm. Victorian beds are never about comfort. You've trained yourself not to sink in, to stay composed, even in sleep. The ceiling above is cracked faintly near the cornice. You once asked to have it painted over. The painter said it was better left. It gave the room character. You think of your own cracks, the fine lines at your temples, the spot on your shoulder you keep trying to fade. You've never been told they give you character. You sit back up. Tonight is the music recital, and you'll need to reapply everything. Evening beauty is different, more dramatic, more shaded, more alert. You open the top drawer and find the small pot of evening glow, a mix of beetroot and wax. It smells faintly of soil. You warm it with your fingers and press it into your cheeks. It tingles. You dab your temples with cologne, lightly, enough to catch on the breeze when you move your head. You once read a guide that said women should smell like summer mornings and finished poetry. You have no idea what that means, but you try anyway. You rebrush your hair this time, parting it in the center and pulling it back in a sleek twist. More severe, more elegant. You pin it tightly. If it hurts, you've done it right. You pick your earrings, small pearls, not too heavy. Heavy earrings make the lobes sag. You learned that after a debutante ball when a woman's earring caught on her fan and tore her ear. She fainted. Everyone gasped. But what you remember most was how the blood stained her gloves. You tie your shoes. Low-heeled satin, a shade lighter than your dress. You polish the tips with a glove. You look at your reflection. You tilt your head. Something is still off. You add a brooch just there near the collarbone. A flash of silver to draw the eye upward. A distraction. That's half the game. You rise and step carefully into the hallway. Each step is balanced, deliberate. You hear voices downstairs, guests arriving, music, starting glasses, clinking. You place your hand lightly on the banister, not for support, but for effect. Downstairs, the evening waits. You descend. The guests nod, the ladies assess. The men smile faintly, and you become the painting again. Polished, arranged, observed. You laugh when appropriate compliment, when expected, and dance just enough to be remembered, but not too much. A woman who calls attention to herself is vulgar. A woman who disappears is useless. You find the line. You walk it. As the music swells and the candles flicker low, someone offers you champagne. You accept, but sip slowly. Alcohol reddens the cheeks. You're already wearing enough rouge, and as the night drifts toward its quiet end, you excuse yourself. Early headache, you say, and retreat again. Back up the stairs. Back to the mirror. You sit once more. The hair comes down. The corset unlaces. The rouge melts off. And you look at yourself. Just for a moment. Bare-faced, bare-shouldered, blinking in the lamplight. Not ugly. Not quite beautiful. Just real. And that in this world is the most forbidden look of all. You sleep on your back because side sleeping causes wrinkles. You keep a silk cloth across your pillow to prevent friction. Your hair is pinned loosely at the crown enough to preserve the curl, not tight enough to break strands. One hand rests across your stomach. The other drapes off the bed, fingers curled as though posing, even in rest. You don't dream of anything dramatic, just a vague swirl of faces, ribbons, flickers of candlelight, and that strange moment when a man at the recital told you your eyes reminded him of wet violets. You're still not sure whether it was meant as praise. Morning finds you the same way it always does, wrapped in the same performance. The daylight is harsher than candlelight. It catches flaws you hoped stayed buried overnight. You sit up, check your face for swelling, and start the process again. The first real ache arrives as you stand. Your ribs feel tight. One side pulses sharply when you inhale. You ignore it. You've ignored worse. Last year, your cousin fainted during a reading because her corset was too tight. The room applauded. They thought it was part of the performance. You soak a cloth in rose water and press it against your cheeks. Today's events include a garden luncheon and a photographer's sitting. You'll need fresh powder, fewer reflective oils, and definitely a paler lip. Bold color doesn't read well in photographs. Your mother once said, "Cameras are more honest than guests. Don't give them anything to betray." You begin selecting your dress, a lilac muslin with cream lace trim. It's high-necked because of the photographer, but sleeveless because it's June. You check your underarms for shadow, for bumps, for any evidence of imperfection. You rub lemon there just to be safe. Historians still debate whether these grooming habits were born of fashion or of surveillance. You know better. They came from fear. Fear of being overlooked. Fear of being chosen for the wrong thing. Fear of becoming a cautionary tale. You tie your corset slightly looser today, 5 loops in instead of 6. Just enough to breathe, but still cinched enough for society's comfort. Your waist looks fine. Your breath better. Your heart irrelevant. At the garden luncheon, Someone compliments your glow. You say, "Thank you," with a smile. But internally, you laugh. It's not glow. It's castor oil under cheekbone powder. It catches light like glass. There's a girl at the far table, red-haired, freckled, laughing without covering her mouth. Her front tooth is slightly crooked. She's stunning, and she has no idea. You overhear someone say, "If only she'd fix her smile." Another agrees. "She could be beautiful." You look away. You think of the jars in your room, the powders, the combs, the bleach, the vinegar. You wonder how many things they'd make her change before she disappears completely. The photographer's studio smells like lavender and burnt magnesium. The assistant fusses over your posture, tilts your head, asks you to hold perfectly still. "Just a moment," he says. "One more second." Your smile trembles. Flash. It's done. He shows you the plate. Your features look softened, almost blurred. The light makes your nose look longer, your eyes deeper. You don't mind. It's not accurate, but it's palatable. The assistant whispers, "You photograph well." You nod. You've trained for it. That night you return home and feel a strange ache in your hips. You soak your feet in salt water, rub cream into your thighs, then lie flat with a heavy book across your stomach to press it down. Your aunt once told you this trick. "It keeps the lower half from spreading," she said. "Gravity is always your enemy." You remember being 12 and watching her remove a brown spot from her hand with lemon salt and a small knife. She bled, but smiled. "Better to sting than to shame," she said. You thought she was mad, but you've now done the same. Twice. Before bed, you do your routine. Brush your hair. 50 strokes. Steam your face with chamomile dab vinegar under your chin. Sleep on your back. Repeat your mantra. Still, smooth, soft. You whisper it 3 times. Like a spell, like a promise. Because in this world, beauty is currency. And no one wants to be bankrupt by morning. The next morning arrives with the heaviness of repetition. You stretch carefully, mindful of the tightness around your rib cage, and swing your legs over the bed. Before your feet even touch the carpet, you're already scanning the day's demands: a visit to the apothecary, a charity tea, and dinner with your mother's friend's son, a potential suitor. That means double powder, firmer curls, and no signs of fatigue. You cross to the mirror. Your face, even unadorned, carries yesterday's ghost. A faint line near the mouth, a mild puff under the eye. You dab cold milk-soaked cloths under your lids and begin the first steps of resurrection. The apothecary's shop is nestled between a hatmaker and a perfumery fitting, as all 3 peddle versions of identity. Inside, the air is thick with clove and crushed mint. The shelves are lined with Little Miracles bee balm for burns, lead paste for whitening, crushed beetles for rouge. You know which to touch and which to avoid. Today you ask for the rose arsenic. Not to eat heavens, no, that's outdated. But a trace, when mixed with vinegar and powder, brings a certain luminous pallor. The shopkeeper eyes you knowingly. We call it the sleeping lady's glow, he says. You nod, drop a few coins, and tuck it in your reticule. Outside, the sun hits too harshly. You raise your parasol. You've been warned. Sunlight ages freckles, thickens the skin. One woman in your circle wears gloves to bed because she fears sleep wrinkles forming on her knuckles. Another had the hairs on her forearms burned off with acid. You once tried that just once and wore sleeves for a month to hide the peeling. At the charity tea, you smile through the usual parade, polite nods, gentle laughter, strategic compliments. What a perfect complexion, one woman murmurs, brushing a knuckle against your cheek. You smile and say thank you, though you want to whisper, it's eggshell powder, not genetics. A discussion arises about a new French technique, skin lifting with beeswax strips. Supposedly it smooths the jawline temporarily. One woman swears it works. Another says it left a rash. You file the idea away. Anything that promises lift is worth a try. A girl across the table asks about your lip color. You tell her honestly that it's made from dried poppy petals and cod liver oil. Her expression falters. I could never, she says. You want to ask, what else would you trade for being seen? Back at home, you prepare for dinner. This is the hard part. A suitor means examination, and examination means perfection. You unpin your hair, wash out the midday oils, and set it again, this time tighter, more defined. You boil lemon peels and rinse your hair in the steeped water. It burns slightly. That's good. That means it's working. You slip into your evening gown, cream silk slight shimmer, tight at the waist. You tighten your corset to the 7th eyelet this time. Breathing becomes a suggestion, but your silhouette becomes immaculate. You check your gloves, ivory lace, no snags. Your shoes, heeled, discreet. Your earrings, pearls again, always pearls. Safe, eternal, pure. The young man is courteous. He bows, compliments your manners. He speaks of politics and railroads. You nod, laugh at the right moments, and stir your soup so your hand looks delicate. This is a dance. He remarks on your glow. You smile, think of the arsenic in your powder. He offers you wine. You accept, barely sip. Alcohol bloats. Later, he compliments your restraint. So many women drink with abandon these days. You wonder if he's ever counted the ways you restrain yourself every waking moment. The night ends politely. No promises, no poetry. Just another evening in a collection of performances. You return home exhausted in ways no one names. You unlace, slowly, sit before the mirror, and look at your reflection. You are tired. And beneath all the powders, the oils, the paint, there is still a woman, breathing shallowly, blinking into silence. You press your hands together and whisper, still, smooth, soft, and the mask begins again. You wake before the sun, not because you want to, but because beauty doesn't rest, and neither can you. The room is still shadowed in gray, but already your body hums with the weight of what needs to be done before breakfast. There's a tightness around your ribs, even before the corset. Maybe it's from yesterday's cinching, or maybe it's from the growing sense that even your bones must cooperate if you want to remain desirable. You sit upright, spine straight as a rod, and reach for the silver hand mirror resting on your nightstand. Even in the dim light, your reflection reveals stories. There's a slight line above your brow, evidence of last night's tension. Your lips are dry, and your cheeks look ashen. You will need rouge more than usual. You reach for the cooling balm, first the one mixed with honey and powdered mint. It soothes the skin, closes the pores, and if the advertisements are to be believed, softens the passage of time. You dab it under your eyes, across your temples, and along the line of your jaw. Then comes the brushwork layer after layer of pale powder to erase the very idea that you sweat or blush or live. The maid enters quietly. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. She moves with practiced efficiency, brushing your hair from root to tip, counting strokes. Today you'll go for the swirled braid at the back with 2 sculpted curls at the temples. It's considered elegant, subdued, but tasteful. But it takes time. She begins, and you close your eyes as the tugging begins. 15 minutes later, your hair is coiled, pinned, lacquered in place, with a mix of egg white and lemon juice. The smell is faintly sour, but the shine is undeniable. Next, the stays. You stand arms raised, and she begins to tighten the corset. You've been training your waist for years, inching it smaller, season by season. Today, you aim for 22 inches, your best silhouette. The cords pull. You exhale slowly. The room narrows. Your shoulders roll back. Your bust lifts. Your spine lengthens. You cannot bend, not really, and sitting will be a delicate procedure. But when you look in the mirror again, you see what society calls discipline. Breakfast is 2 bites of bread, a half cup of broth, and 1 dried plum. Anything more would bloat the belly, and the bodice must lie flat. Hunger sharpens your mind, or so you've been told. You chew slowly, not for digestion, but to delay the moment when the world starts watching. Outside, the air smells of coal smoke and horse sweat. The streets are lined with gas lamps, flickering even in the day's pale light. Your carriage arrives, and with assistance, you climb aboard. The corset does not allow for graceful entry. You shift. Sit straight, knees together, hands folded on your lap. Every part of your posture is curated, rehearsed, perfected. The social calendar today includes a charity committee meeting, an affair meant to showcase feminine benevolence while gently reminding everyone whose dressmaker you've chosen. You arrive at the estate of Lady Belgrave precisely 10 minutes past the hour, the fashionable delay. Her butler bows, her dog barks once, and then you're ushered into a parlor blooming with women in soft pastels, trimmed hats, and smiles that hover on the edge of fatigue. You take your seat, balancing delicately on the edge of a tufted cushion. To slump is to invite whispers. To speak too much is worse. So you tilt your head, nod at intervals, murmur agreement. The conversation turns to the new Parisian facial sculpting tool. Someone claims it lifts the cheekbones permanently. Another swears by the nightly tapeworm tonic, drastic. Yes, but effective. You laugh politely, fingers wrapped around your teacup. Your lips barely touch the rim. The tea is tepid. You sip anyway. By afternoon, you've made no missteps. You've offered 3 compliments, refused 2 sweets, and excused yourself once to pat your nose with a lace handkerchief. The handkerchief is embroidered with your initials. It matches your gloves. The details matter, because in this world, beauty isn't just appearance, it's evidence of control, mastery over appetite, over time, over one's own body. As you return home, your feet ache. The heeled boots tight at the toes were never meant for walking. You ease them off and feel the blood rush back into your toes, which pulse with silent complaint. But it's not yet time to relax. A suitor is expected for dinner. The suitor is a gentleman of good standing with a slightly receding hairline and the kind of watch chain that says, "I own land, but not imagination." You met him once before at a botanical exhibition where he commented on your parasol. Tonight he arrives bearing a bouquet of lilies and a compliment about your complexion. You thank him demurely, of course, while resisting the urge to rub your sore temples. Dinner is served in courses, each one a trap. There's creamy soup which might stain your gloves. There's roast duck which requires precise knife work. And there's dessert, a custard tart wobbling with menace. You nibble at the vegetables, take one measured bite of duck, and decline the tart. Too rich, you say, with a smile that does not reveal teeth. He talks at length about trade routes. You nod occasionally, asking a question that signals interest without opinion. The role of a woman is not to know, but to notice. To absorb the presence of a man without reflecting too much light of her own. After the meal, there's music. You're asked to play. Your corset makes reaching the high notes on the piano difficult, but you manage. Your fingers, though sore from tight gloves, perform the waltz with elegance. He claps. You blush. Or rather, you pretend to blush. It's a practice gesture, part of your repertoire. When he leaves, he bows over your hand and murmurs something about seeing you again. You incline your head. Approval is a currency, and tonight you've earned a modest deposit. Upstairs, you undress slowly. Every pin removed from your hair feels like exhaling. The corset comes off with your maid's help, and your ribs expand like bellows. You breathe in deeply, then wince. There are red marks, indentations, and a small bruise where the boning pressed too hard. In the mirror, you study your face. The rouge has faded, and your real skin peeks through sallow, tired human. You dab on rose water and prepare for bed, but sleep doesn't come easily. Your mind hums with rewinds, every glance, every inflection, every hesitation in tonight's performance. Did you hold his gaze too long when he mentioned his mother? Did your smile twitch when he praised your piano playing? You recall the dinner fork, was it placed slightly askew beside the charger plate? Small sins in the cathedral of womanhood, but sins nonetheless. You turn onto your side. Your ribs complain. You flip to your back. Your scalp still tingles from the lemon and egg hair lacquer. And your hands itch dry from washing scrubbed with lemon to keep the skin pale. Tomorrow you will need to soak them in milk and honey. Perhaps wear those ridiculous kid skin gloves lined with wax overnight. Historians still argue whether women like you lived for beauty or suffered because of it, whether you truly believed it was your duty or simply your sentence. The truth, as always, lies somewhere quieter beneath the layers of powder and lace, between the sighs and the silences. You wonder what life might look like without the rituals. If you rose late, ate what pleased you, walked in the sun barefaced, would anyone look at you twice? Would that feel like freedom or erasure? A breeze from the window moves the curtain. Outside the city exhales. You press your hand to your belly, flat empty, punished, and inhale through your nose. There is no applause, no grand ovation for the day you've just completed. Only the quiet satisfaction that no one could say you looked anything less than appropriate. You close your eyes, and tomorrow it begins again. Another day, another suit of armor in silk. Another performance sewn from propriety, pinned in place with sacrifice, because beauty in your world is not reward. It is expectation, relentless, inescapable, and endlessly rehearsed. The morning begins with silence, but not peace. You wake before the maid knocks eyes wide open limbs, unwilling to move. The corset sits on its stand, like a ghost waiting to be worn again. Today there is no social event on the calendar, no luncheon, no calling hour, no suitor expected. And yet the ritual remains. Beauty does not rest just because no one is watching. In fact, that's when it matters most. You rise and wash your face in cold water. It shocks your nerves awake, tightens your pores, and chases away the remnants of sleep. No perfumes today, just a touch of rose water diluted for the sake of routine. The mirror does not flatter. It reflects your sleepless night, your thinning patience, your fading appetite. You dab powder over the dark circles anyway. Downstairs, the house is quiet. Even the ticking of the clock feels too loud. You hold a teacup, but don't drink. You move from room to room, touching the back of chairs, adjusting a crooked picture frame, straightening a rug. Small acts of control in a world that feels increasingly outside your grasp. And then the letter arrives. A single sheet cream paper, hand-addressed. The handwriting is slanted, deliberate. It's from your cousin, one of the few women in your circle who never wore a corset. She lives in Florence now with a painter and claims to eat bread every morning without shame. She writes of afternoons in loose linen of gardens, overgrown with color of laughter that doesn't need an audience. You hold the letter close, reading it twice. A part of you aches with longing. Another part tightens with guilt. She was once like you, disciplined, admired, proper. Now she is sun-kissed and soft and utterly free. And you're still here, holding a teacup with trembling fingers, wondering if the life you've built is yours at all. You fold the letter and place it in your drawer, not in shame, but in something closer to reverence. There's power in her rebellion, even if it frightens you, even if you're not ready for it yourself. Not yet. You return to your room and stare at the corset again. Its shape is beautiful hourglass, balanced, symmetrical, but it only holds that form by refusing yours. You run your hand along the stays, the stitching, the faint imprint of your own ribs. There's something almost accusatory in the way it waits for you, silent and expectant. You dress, but without it. Just a soft gown, no boning, no laces. It falls loosely over your frame, unfamiliar and honest. You look in the mirror, unsure what you see. You look taller somehow, but also more fragile, like a version of yourself that hasn't yet learned all the rules. Your reflection holds your gaze. You tilt your head, not to present your better side, but to really see what's there. You reach up and undo the lacquered curls, letting your hair fall to its natural wave. For once, it feels like yours. Downstairs, you open the windows. The air is cooler today, carrying the scent of wet stone and city smoke. You let it in anyway. The curtains ripple like something breathing. You sit in the parlor without gloves, touch the velvet of the sofa with bare hands. You laugh quietly at how new everything feels, without armor. But the housekeeper sees you undone, unstructured, uncorseted. Her eyebrows rise just slightly, a silent judgment. You feel the shame rise in your chest, hot and sudden. You almost run back upstairs. Almost. But you don't. Instead, you look her in the eye and offer a small nod. Not of apology, but acknowledgement. You know what she sees, a lady, not quite a lady, undone by her own choices. But what she cannot see is what you feel, a lightness so strange and uncertain. It's almost frightening. You take a book from the shelf, one you've never opened because it was always considered too frivolous. A story about a woman who leaves her family to find herself in the countryside. You carry it to the drawing room, curl up in the corner chair, not the upright one, and read. The hours slip by. Outside, a child laughs in the street. A vendor calls out the price of pears. You let the sounds in. You do not rush to shut the windows. You do not rush at all. By noon, you've finished half the book and your spine hasn't ached once. When the maid brings your luncheon tray, she pauses. You're not seated at the table. You're not wearing gloves. Your hair is loose. She hesitates to place the tray, as if waiting for permission. You smile. "Here is fine," you say, patting the armrest beside you. She obeys. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't frown either. She leaves without comment. Your lunch tastes better today, perhaps, because you're actually hungry. Perhaps because you're eating it with your fingers, tearing off bits of bread like a child. You chew slowly for pleasure, not for show. Historians still argue whether women like you were ever truly content or merely resigned, whether the trappings of beauty were accepted or simply endured. But you wonder, could contentment feel like this? This small, quiet defiance that asks for nothing but presence. Afternoon fades. The sky outside darkens into a soft gray, and the gas lamps sputter to life. You light a candle instead of turning on the electric chandelier. The glow is gentler, more forgiving. You take the letter from your cousin once more, read the last paragraph again. She writes, "There is life beyond appearances. There is breath beyond the stays. You only have to begin." You set the letter down and write back, slowly, carefully. You don't say you're ready to leave or change or burn your corsets in the fireplace. You just write, "Today I wore a soft dress and it didn't break me." You seal the envelope and place it on the mantel. You'll post it tomorrow. Evening falls, and with it comes a strange peace. You walk to the window, hair unbound waist, unrestricted, and look out at the city. There are women still rushing, still bound, still sculpting themselves to match the mirror. You wish them well. You know their struggle. You pour a glass of water, sit at the vanity, and look once more at your reflection. You look tired. You look older than you did this morning, but you also look more like yourself. There is no applause, no announcement, just a breath, a release. You rise, pull back the covers, and lie down. Not in defeat, in choice. And for once, sleep finds you first. And now, dear listener, your eyes grow heavier. The candle in the corner flickers, casting gentle shadows across your quiet room. Each shadow moves slowly, like a memory, softly stretching its limbs. The air is still carrying only the faint sound of wind brushing against the window pane, like silk dragging gently across wood. Your breathing begins to slow. Inhale and exhale. No corset pressing in. No rules to follow. Just breath. Natural, steady, kind. You imagine soft linens brushing your skin. A pillow that remembers the shape of your head. A silence that isn't empty, but full of comfort. Let your thoughts float like petals on still water. No need to chase them, no need to grasp. Just notice them, drift gently, calmly, until they fade. You're safe now. The world has turned down its volume. There's nothing you must be, nothing you must wear, nothing you must do. Let the echoes of today dissolve into the dark. Let the pressure leave your ribs. Let the need to perform melt from your shoulders. And if you dream, let it be of gardens, of warm linen, of laughter that needs no permission. You have earned your rest. You have held yourself together for so long. Now you can soften. Now you can sleep. Good night.